With all the news surrounding Zach LaVine and him potentially being up for grabs to go to another team, now is the time for the Chicago Bulls to pick a side to either rebuild or retool. Y'all already know. You gotta hear the music first. Cognac. Gang. Shy Bulls Podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, holding it down on another episode of Shy Bulls Podcast with me and my co-host, C-Dub. If y'all like what y'all listening to today, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. But now is the time for the Chicago Bulls to pick a side, rebuild or retool. And then we're going to break it down. Now, look. It's a lot of stuff that's been going on. It's a lot of conversations dating back since last year, and we talked about it, and I gave an update yesterday. But now I really wanted to just dive in and just really break this thing down just to give some insight, and so y'all can make a decision to see what makes sense for you. Because me, I'm kind of like right in the middle. I understand both decisions. If you go ahead and rebuild this thing out, or if you want to go ahead and retool and just kind of see what pans out, after making some moves and see if you can go ahead and make some additions to the team. So the question is for the Chicago Bulls, do you want to start the youth movement, or do you want to retool to get into playoff contention, potentially championship contention, depending on what moves are made, which will be really, really tough for the Chicago Bulls. Now, before we get into it, we got to look at the totality of the team right now. 2 years ago, we looked at the team. AK and Mark Eversley, they came in, gave you Lonzo Ball, Alex Caruso, DeMar DeRozan, added on. The Bulls were on a run. Boom. January hits. Lonzo Ball goes down. The Chicago Bulls in the second half of that season, in a terrible way, still end up making the playoffs, but then got bounced in the first round by the Milwaukee Bucks and only won one game. Had an off season, came in and said we're going to run with some continuity. Then this season, not so great. Chicago Bulls found themselves struggling to even make the playoffs. They get in the play-in game, win one against the Toronto Raptors, then lose to the eventual Eastern Conference champions, the Miami Heat, in that second play-in game. And man, was it a disappointing season for the Chicago Bulls to where we question their heart, we question their effort, we question the makeup of the team, and it has always been conversations surrounding Zach LaVine and many, many people saying, let's trade him. Let's go into rebuild. Let's blow this thing up. Because a lot of people, and understandably, they feel that the Bulls don't even have a chance at a championship with the current construction of this roster. These guys got money that they giving out to various players like Alex Caruso, Nikola Vucevic he's in extension talks right now. You're giving out money to Zach LaVine, max money. You're giving out big money to DeMar DeRozan, and the Bulls are in a tough situation right now. So now we dive into first the rebuild option. The rebuild option in my mind is saying, let's blow this whole thing up. Let's go ahead and let's get rid of everything. We're going to start this youth movement, and we're going to go ahead and keep it pushing in that way. A rebuild option looks like, in my mind, the Chicago Bulls saying, to hell with all the vets we have on this team, like a Zach, like a DeMar, like a Vooch, like Alex Caruso. Let's go ahead and get some young players and some trade assets behind them, and we can see what goes on from there. Excuse me. And then, in my mind, you gather some of those assets. You grab some of those young players that you will trade all your vets for. And then, in my mind, you run a core of Patrick Williams, Ayo Dosunmu, Kobe White, and whoever else you decide to get back with making those trades. You basically clear house and you say, let's start this thing over. And you lock in and you prepare for years of bad basketball, Bulls fans. We prepare for years of bad basketball. I know there might be some people that might come out and say, hey, I'm prepared for bad basketball as long as these guys come out of here and play hard. That's fair. I'm with it. Because that was at one point of the season to where I was telling, hey, look, we ain't got much to play for. Go ahead. Let's see more Dalen Terry. Let's see Marko Simonovic alongside Kobe White, Ayodo Sumu, Patrick Williams, and just let these guys go out and play because we at least know they will play hard. And that was during sometimes to where we questioned the heart of the team. So that's the first option, the rebuild option. Trade away all the main guys who got value, recoup some assets, add on some assets, get some young players in return alongside those assets and draft capital, open up the cap space, see if you can bring some more young players in, and then you move on from there. And us as Bull fans, we prepare for years of bad basketball because this is not football. In football, you can go ahead and have one bad offseason and you can turn it, you can do a complete 180 and take off. This is not that. This is basketball. This is years and years of progression. So that's the rebuild option. Now, the retool option, in my mind, looks like either trading DeMar DeRozan or Nikola Vucevic and possibly Alex Caruso, depending on the value of those three players. You get some young talent in back. You potentially get some assets before the NBA draft, and then you can see if you can add on and you can, quote unquote, build around Zach LaVine. I kind of feel like the Bulls are in that type of realm right now to where they built around Zach LaVine. It wasn't done 100% correctly or to my liking. Well, at least the vision looked pretty good at first, but now there's no Lonzo Ball, so now that changes everything. So if you do that, you do the retool option, you know what I'm saying? You either trade one of those guys who has value, get more assets, potentially get some more players in here, and you let Zach LaVine run the show. Hopefully, you go ahead and modernize the offense. You get a little bit younger. So in this case, the Bulls should be able to have better three-point shooters. They should be able to run the pace and run the floor and push the pace a little bit more. And who knows what the hell is going to happen. But you know that a retool option also should include looking for a point guard who could take some pressure off Zach LaVine. So we're looking at all that. We looked at both options, but I still think with both options, there still will remain questions. If you go into the rebuild option to where you just traded away everything, got more assets, number one question is, how long are we going to sit here and deal with bad basketball? Will the trust decrease even more between AK and Mark Eversley? Because in my mind, these guys can't continue to use, or we can't continue to look at AK's time in Denver and be like, look, he's going to be able to change it around. We won't be able to look at that. But we do know that these guys received extensions, so they will be here for the foreseeable future. So that's one of the questions. And then another question will be, how impatient will the Chicago Bulls fan base be? Because we already not satisfied with having a team that's at least fighting for a play-in spot, or playoff spot, or that was in the playoffs. So how are we going to feel when we know we're absolutely not going to be fighting for a playoff spot? Being the bottom of the East, being a team that's a stinker. Would playing hard enough be good enough for some fans? I don't know, because a lot of the times Chicago Bulls fans, we are the skies falling fans, and we always succumb to whatever the narrative is out there in the media, and sometimes we don't look at things for what they really are. Now, if the Bulls go into the retool option, the questions that will be out there, can this team finally win a playoff series? That will be out there. Will this team look like Damian Lillard in Portland? So say if the Chicago Bulls move Vooch, move Alex Caruso, but then they have Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan still running the show. To me, that's kind of the equivalent of Dame Dollar and CJ McCollum, but without the proven success. Those two guys, they went to a Western Conference Finals in a tougher conference, and they had some playoff success. So will the retool option translate into winning a playoff series, which was something that was promised to us last offseason, but we didn't get it. We found ourselves in the play-in game. So the questions, no matter what the Chicago Bulls decide to do, will still be there regardless of what the Chicago Bulls decide to do. Look, it ain't a lot of money that these guys can throw out. I mean, they have some options on both sides of the spectrum when you're looking at rebuilding and retooling. But it's still going to be difficult, and they're still not going to be able to satisfy or fix everything within 1 year. That's just what it is. I'm of the mindset is that you keep talent in. But on the flip side, if you got talent going out, you got to have something coming in. And if they go to rebuild option, they will have something coming in. There will be some returns. But then it comes down, do we really trust AK and Mark Eversley to draft the correct players? That's a question that we're all asking. You know what I'm saying? Because Ayo Sumu, his minutes went down in favor of some of the veteran players that are currently on the team. Patrick Williams, his development has been hindered by, in my mind, DeMar DeRozan and other veterans on his team. We didn't see Dalen Terry, so we don't know what he could potentially bring to the table because of other veterans on the team. Marko Simonovic, we don't know what he can be or what he can add to the table because we don't see him. Could be because of veterans or could be because he just doesn't have it. But one thing is for sure. We don't know because we have not seen him on the basketball court. So the Chicago Bulls are in a tough position right now. They have a tough decision to make. They have to figure this thing out. They got to pick a direction. Me personally, whatever they decide to do, I'm still going to be on the side of, I'm a Bulls fan, and this shit better work out. That's just how I look at it. It better work out. If you go into the rebuild option, we need to see things happen to where we be like, okay, cool. We got a nice young team. Hopefully the coach can coach up the par, and boom, the future is bright. If you go to the retool option, we be like, all right, cool. They made these moves. They brought in these players. We got a chance of winning a playoff series or making it past the second round. Something like that. But it has to be some type of progression because right now the Chicago Bulls, in my mind, we're stuck in the mud. That's why I pose this question. Should we rebuild or should we retool? The Chicago Bulls have to pick a side, and I believe that time is now because if you are dangling Zach LaVine to other teams, what if you want to send Zach LaVine to play with Damian Lillard? We know Damian Lillard has been reluctant to leave Portland, and he's given them a chance. Would you go ahead and say, Portland, give us Shaedon Sharpe, give us that pick? You know what I'm saying? And then the Chicago Bulls can potentially use Shaedon Sharpe, use that pick to have a good player. Then you continue to build around Patrick Williams, Ayo Dosunmu, Kobe White. You got a team full of young players that are ready to roll and hopefully can bring something for the foreseeable future for the Chicago Bulls. Or if you go retool, whoever you bring in, can they help contribute? Can they modernize the offense? Can they be a playoff contending team to the point to where we are winning series? I don't want to win games, not one game. I want to win series in the playoffs. So they got to make the decision. So y'all go ahead and let me know what you guys would like for the Chicago Bulls to do. Rebuild or retool, and give me reasons why. Don't just say crazy stuff neither. Give me real reasons why. On the reason you think they should rebuild or retool. And of course, make sure y'all hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. You already know. If you want to sound off, be a part of any mailbag episodes, go ahead and send a text message in or a voicemail in at 773-242-9219. And of course, see red. This is another episode of Shy Boys Podcast. I'm Bobby. holding it down for me and my Unc C-Dub. And shout out to my Unc, man. Shout out to my Unc, man. He got to enjoy his B-Day. Y'all already know, Unc. That's one of my greatest role models right there. Real talk. So shout out to my co-host and first and foremost, my uncle. It's busting. Catch y'all on the next one.
Cognac. Gang.